Hey everybody, Dr. Rob Silverman here. I've got Dr. Elena here. We're going to have a great 30 to 45 minutes. Superstar without question. Hey, Dr. Elena, how are you today?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm happy you could make it. You are so busy. It took a while to get you on, but honestly, thank you so much for taking some time. Everybody's going to be really interested in what you have to say. I'm fascinated by what you said. We were having a conversation before, and you know, it, I, everybody listening needs to hear what you have to say right now. So I want everybody to get to know who you are and a little bit about you. We're talking a little bit. So you were a semi-pro tennis player.
Yes, I was. And actually, for a big part of my life, I would say probably about 15 years, I played semi-professional tennis. And that was really the foundation for why I do what I do today. And, initially, I think when people think about semi-professional or professional athletes, that, we have nutritionists and we have PTs and we have, coaches, and it doesn't happen right away. And so for me, it was kind of a hard road, right? I had to figure a lot on my own. And then when I finally found out how I can eat well and the lifestyle balance and all these things, it started to click together, but almost it happened too late. I got burnt out before I could do anything bigger.
So like I said, we were talking before, so I got some cheat sheets here. So you kind of gave up tennis, which is an interesting sport, to go to mountain climbing. I mean,
Yeah.
how'd you go from that to that? That just didn't seem like a logical transition.
Yeah, definitely. So tennis was very fast paced. I mean, I got up at 5:30 in the morning for my first workout. Then I actually went to school because at that time I was in high school. And then I would go for my second workout, which was from about 1 to 5 when we were in tennis court. And then from like 5 to 6 was weight training, dinner, and maybe some more rallies, right? And so it was a very busy few years. And I went into mountain climbing because I just wanted to slow down. I wanted to stop and smell the wildflowers. I wanted to train at my own pace, hang out with new people, right? Because you get used to seeing the same faces and, just being on court so much. And so mountain climbing was just so refreshing. And I think it really, I tapped into certain personality and characteristics of myself that I didn't know I had.
I could see that. I would mountain climb. I just have a little problem. I'm afraid of heights. So we're gonna have to talk about getting over that. Maybe I need to learn how to chill out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a challenge. That's one of my challenges. It's going to be mountain climbing and jumping out of a plane. Having
Yeah.
said that, you're a naturopath.
Yes.
So with all the options that you had, naturopath, chiropractic,
Yeah.
if you will, medical, DO, tell me why you chose naturopathic, and you know what, and what is it really?
Yeah. Those are two excellent questions. So I went to first see a naturopath when I was about 16.
Mhm.
I was a little bit iron deficient, a little bit of B12 deficient, and nobody ever seemed to really address that. So I felt really great, right? So I had my first B12 shot when I was 16 and felt really, really good. Again, got burnt out through tennis. And actually, I was supposed to play at UW because that's the school that I went to for my bachelor's, and actually got my bachelor's was in business. And I studied international business. And after that, I got into a little bit of commercial real estate. And it was such a conscious experience. Here I'm coming from this huge athletic background and teaching yoga in the evenings and doing commercial real estate, working with brokers during daytime. I'm like, whoa, this is a huge contrast. I want to live this lifestyle, but yet I'm experiencing this and seeing tons of happy hours during the day. And so I decided that, my heart wasn't in it. I also wanted to fix myself in a way. I kind of had a baggage of things that I hadn't dealt with early on. As a young woman, I had an eating disorder and, had body and self-image issues and just did not feel well. Right. And so my mom is actually a medical doctor. So she's a
Mm.
family physician. And I approached her and I was like, well, mom, why don't I maybe go pursue nutrition? Or why don't I maybe go for a nursing degree? I kind of wanted to do something with medicine and mostly to help myself first. And she goes, well, why don't you just go for a medical degree? And I asked her why. And she said, well, you'll be able to do just so much more, right? You'll understand the body better. You'll understand the physiology better. And you'll just be able to, the world is your oyster, do whatever you want with it. And so I actually wanted to go into emergency medicine first because we have UW here. They have a great emergency medicine program. And because I thought, if I can fix a broken leg, that I would be the best doctor in the world. And I realized that, this is going into what is naturopathic medicine, that it's about treating the whole person. It's understanding how are all these systems interconnected and not just going after the symptoms. And I think, I had some wisdom, and I also saw how my mom practiced. And she was very engaged with her patients. She understood them very well. She had really great medical understanding. And I realized I have this amazing school in my own backyard, Bestseller, and conscious and experience kind of going into UW and then going into Bestseller. I was like, wow, this is my home. This is where I can learn how to be a great provider and really understand the root of disease.
Yeah, as a chiropractor, and you're speaking to the concept of like fixing the body from the inside out, sort of a functional medicine, functional nutrition, and chiros and naturopaths kind of look at it the same way. The body's all interconnected. That's so great. Fix it from the inside out, trying to use non-medical alternatives. And I always get funny when I say the word alternatives, but non-medical model. And what's interesting with naturopaths they are without question that natural physician. Chiros were a little bit more, we do a little bit more adjustment.
Right.
But again, the parallel that I tell everybody when I speak to a naturopath and a chiropractor is that we were touched by somebody else. You said I went to a naturopath. I was touched. Most of the time, and there's no disrespect to any medical doctor, but no one had brain surgery and decided to be brain surgeon. I was helped with my torticollis. You were helped with what you did. So that's a great takeaway. Now, it's my time to share with everybody. I got some little notes on you over here, little creep sheets. Sorry about this. You're going to blush and apologize. Dr. Elena has been voted the best naturopathic physician in Seattle. Not bad. And you specialize in women's health, hormones, gut health, using cutting-edge treatments to optimize all aspects of health. How'd you come up, you said the body works all together, it's all interconnected. Well, first of all, congratulations on winning best naturopath in Seattle.
Thank you.
It's not like New York where they're not licensed. In Seattle, it's a plethora. You did a great job.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what I just said.
A little bit about being the best naturopath, or about women's health and hormones?
Yeah, women's health and hormones and gut health and how they're intertwined. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. There's sometimes when I talk to patients and they'll say, well, what do my hormones have to do with my gut health? Or what does my gut health have to do with my hormones? And the gut, we have so much bacteria, right? More than the total number of cells in our body. And I always say it's kind of us versus them, right? They're there to make the cells cozy and comfortable. It doesn't matter how crappy we might feel, right? And so there are so many ailments and disease processes that initiate or start in the gut. So for every hormone imbalance case that I see, there's usually some sort of gut imbalance that happens. And a lot of times women will say, well, why don't you just help me fix my hormones and then we'll work on the gut health next. And my approach to that is, no, we got to start at the gut. And, and I understand that sometimes people will feel really poor for, a few years and they want to have that quick fix. But that's not the time. We really need to take the time to understand what are the imbalances in the gut. And a lot of times people just think about bacteria. Well, the microbiome is yeast and parasites and bacteria and all those fun creatures. So we need to understand what is happening internally and then see what are the endocrine imbalances. Is it thyroid? Is it adrenal gland? And a lot of times when you start addressing the gut, people are already feeling better, right? Sure, their thyroid might be a little bit suboptimal or their estrogens are through the roof, and we'll work on that. But a lot of times if we fix that underlying discomfort in the gut, it already makes people 80% better.
That's incredible. The gut, without question, is the epicenter of health. You're speaking to the choir when you talk to me about that. It's just interesting how just today patients called me and said, really about gluten, like, should I really go gluten-free? And I see that smile and, thanks for not doing the New York thing and rolling your eyes and everything like that.
No, and I've actually, I have to say, I've heard you talk before, and you're an incredible speaker and you really understand the gut component extremely well.
Thank you very much for that. I did have a question. You've become an expert in the physiological and the psychological aspects of cravings. And I think we as practitioners, not you, but so many practitioners don't look at that. We think we look too linear. So I'd love you to be able to explain that for everybody.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the kind of the background on that is that I just even growing up, had the biggest sweet tooth. So really terrible sugar cravings. I'm sure many folks can relate to that. And for some people, it's sugar. For other people, it's something savory or salty. And it's not just a matter of willpower. So many times we hear, well, just don't eat that, or just have a treat at the end of the day. And some people, they can't just have, a piece of chocolate at the end of the day. A piece of chocolate will lead to eating a whole chocolate bar, right? There's some sort of innate response that prevents us from stopping. And so there was one time, actually, I think I was about 5 months pregnant when I got the idea to write this book on sugar cravings. And it came from, I was just in the kitchen and I had an impulse to make like a little protein ball, right? With some dates and maybe some oats and some nut butter, because I had some really serious sugar cravings. And I realized it's like, wait a second, I'm hormonal. I'm probably lacking a little bit of serotonin just because of knowing my history. And I am choosing, instead of going for something that's processed like ice cream or chocolate or whatever, I'm choosing to make my own healthy snack, right? That's high in protein, high in fiber, and healthy carbohydrates. And that's very satisfying, right? So one, you curb the craving, but two, you actually fulfill some sort of need, physiological need in the body. And so my approach to cravings was the naturopathic or the functional medicine approach. Is why don't we look at what's happening with the microbiome? Because what we eat influences our microbiome. If you eat lots of meat, you're going to grow microbiome that's going to make you crave more meat. If you eat a lot of pizza and if you eat a lot of gluten, you're going to crave more of those things. If you eat a lot of sugar or drink a lot of sugar, you're going to crave those things. Everything is interconnected, right? So our microbiome can even influence our cravings. Then there's hormones. If somebody is exhausted because they're in an adrenal deficit, they're going to crave sugar. They're going to crave salt. And same thing for thyroid. So therefore, if we don't fix the thyroid or if we don't fix the adrenal gland, we're going to continue to crave those things. We're going to crave the caffeine that's going to make us feel worse. We're going to crave the sugar that's going to, contribute to a microbiome imbalance and all sorts of things. So for me, looking at cravings, it's that systematic, more functional approach.
I love it. Look at the systems, not at the symptoms, as you
Right.
alluded to before. Now, I had the opportunity to read your book, Crave Reset. It's a really good read. If you have a copy there, I'd love you to pick it up and show everybody.
I actually, my order did not come in for whatever reason. It's taking so long to get the books in, so I don't have it with me.
Mine's at home. We do this all the time. It's not a problem. Who's the book meant for, and how can I get a copy?
Yeah, so the book is available on Amazon. So there's the Kindle edition, there's a soft cover, hardcover. So you can just go on Amazon and order the book from there. Really easy, but it's really for people, I think I really spoke to women in this book, just because we're hormonal, our hormones, it does the wave throughout the month and that can influence our cravings. But women are also just more susceptible, right, to having lower serotonin levels naturally. And that can make us very emotional. And you pair that with the hormones and maybe some genetic component, and we're just a hot mess. And so I really go deep into helping folks, and again, predominantly women, understanding that their cravings are just not a matter of willpower. Because a lot of times women will get down on themselves like, oh, why can't I do this, right? Why does it come so easily to some people and not to me? Mm-hmm. And a part of me is I wanted to say, hey, you know what? It's okay. You might not be able to do this on your own, and you might need some help and some guidance to get through this, but you got this, right? And it was meant to be like more of an, I definitely wanted people to walk away from this is like, you don't need to do fancy testing, right? You can start by eating more clean. You can start by paying attention to more of your cues during the day. Like, what are your potential triggers? Maybe you're skipping meals, right? Not intentionally. And then you overeat or you binge. And so because women are just more susceptible to that, it was really meant to be for them. to check in with their hormones, to check in with their just emotional state, understand their genetics a little bit better, and see what they can walk away with and start implementing right away in their daily life, in their work life. So
fabulous. Why don't you share like 3 little takeaway strategies for people, women especially,
yeah.
in the idea of Crave Reset? Because, you know, speaking from the counterpart, you know, the gender issue, when women say it to me, they're always, I have cravings. What can you do for me, Dr. Robin? I sit there and I'm like, I don't have those cravings. So you know, I'm going to be straight. You're helping every male practitioner and patients at the same time. So please help me. Send me a life support system here.
Yeah, I love that. So one of the first things I like to do is do an audit. And this is something that people can do right away, right? So an audit is basically a dietary tracker. And it might seem very old school, but it works. So this is just a glimpse into how you're eating day to day, the timing of your meals, what you're having, what your mood is like, what your digestion is like. Did you work out that day? And a lot of times, so I do this with a lot of my new patients, is I have them complete this before our very first phone call. And right away, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I don't have my breakfast maybe until 11 a.m., right? So they're not intermittent fasting. They're just skipping meals or, you know, time restricted eating. So that's one thing. And then they'll notice that like, oh, and when I skip meals, I tend to not go for hummus and cucumbers. I tend to go for the box of Cheerios, right? So they're making that connection. So right away, we're putting the patient in charge of their own nutrition. Or I had a really stressful work week, and then I had 3 glasses of wine and then, you know, some Cheez-Its. And I mean, it's true story. I'm not making this up because I see these dietary audits all throughout the day. But that would be the first place to start, is check in with yourself. What does your day look like? What's your eating behavior, and what are those potential triggers? And then also part of the audit is understanding, well, how's this making me feel? Right? Because when you make that connection, the first part of change is becoming aware, right? Where's the problem before we can start working on the solution? I would say the second thing, especially for women, it is addressing their lifestyle component. Many people, I mean, I'm sure you know this, right? Are just waking up, they're going straight to their phones, they're going straight to your laptops, you know, and they forget to meditate, they forget to journal. They start from going from a parasympathetic into a sympathetic nervous system mode. And that causes a rush of adrenaline, that causes a rush of cortisol, that dysregulates blood sugar. And then they start craving salty and crunchy and savory. And so when that happens, I always tell women, be prepared. If you know that you're going to be on the go, always have maybe a protein bar, maybe a nut butter packet, maybe, you know, overnight oats or chia pods or something ready, like a grab and go, so that you don't end up going through McDonald's drive-through or Starbucks drive-through, you know, so that you have something that's readily available. So the second thing is knowing that because you have the triggers or because you have a crazy lifestyle, is being prepared. And that's something that's really helped me in my personal life, is that I always have healthy snacks or treats around the house, because again, I have a sweet tooth, but I've learned to get creative. I know that if I have a trigger, I'll go have a bite of a protein bar, and it's the same for me as having like a scoop of ice cream. I really, like, my body does not know the difference, and I prefer to have the protein bar. And then the third thing is that get your hormones fixed, right? So you will continue to have those cravings no matter how prepared you are, no matter how much you meditate or yoga or how much you work out. Those cravings will persist unless you fix the underlying imbalance. And it's not just hormones. Let's think about nutrition deficiencies, B12 and folate and iron and magnesium, all the things that we're just depleted from, right? Just maybe naturally we don't get those things. But then, you know, a lot of women who have subclinical hypothyroidism or just adrenal dysfunction will continue to have those cravings until we address them. And actually, like, one of my favorite herbs is licorice. Licorice is great for regulating blood sugar. I've used it successfully even with diabetes and people with elevated A1C and just morning hyperglycemia. And so licorice is one of my favorite herbal supplements. for that, for balancing blood sugar. Just don't do it if you have high blood pressure, and talk to your provider.
They gave them the three. You know, what really resonates to me is the ability to prepare. And that's why they need to reach out to you, because you're going to teach them how to prepare. I mean, I just got a call today as a practitioner talking about the ketogenic diet, and they wanted some direction within that, and they've got to seek you out. It's hard to do on your own. Everybody would benefit from a coach. By the way, I need you to do me a favor. I just, Barry Scott asked, what's the name of the book? I must have said it too quick. So why don't you do your little 15 seconds, the name of the book and how they can get it again?
Yeah. So the book is called Crave Reset. It's a breakthrough guide for the psychology and physiology of cravings. And it really covers the genetics, the digestive health, hormones, lifestyle, and also includes a lot of great recipes that people can start trying right away to help them with their cravings.
I wanted you to say that about the recipes, because that is like the number one question. I never realized before COVID-19, as a segue into the next question, that people didn't cook. I never realized. Every one of my restaurateurs, I'm in New York, we know you're in Seattle, we had the issue first early. They were coming in and people like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, I don't cook, I eat out. And I'm like, oh my God, all these comorbidities, because they order out and they don't prepare, just like you said. So having said all that, is there a connection between these uncontrolled cravings and COVID-19 comorbidities, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the thing that happens is that when we eat the standard American diet or some sort of version of it, it creates insulin dysregulation, blood sugar dysregulation, you know, creates fat cell growth, all of those things. And it jeopardizes our cardiovascular health. It jeopardizes actually our lung health, right? Because we're not getting that antioxidant rich diet that usually comes from fruits and vegetables and dark pigmented produce, which are so important, which are full of key nutrients that are especially important for our immune system, lung health, all of those things. And so I've actually found some of my patients who were doing a lot of takeout are now feeling like they're so much healthier because they're forced to cook more at home. And when it comes to recipes, I really want people to just have really simple recipes. And when they can't think of anything, I say, what's your vegetable? What's your protein? What's your fat? That's it. Could be broccoli, could be chicken, and a half an avocado. Boom. You have yourself a meal. It does not have to be complicated, you know. And I'm a really simple cook. I love to eat. I love good food, but I'm also about simplicity. And so my goal is for people to really find happiness in food. You know, you can still eat really well and prevent disease by cooking at home and not cooking with a bunch of, and you know, when you do a lot of takeout, you risk soybean oil, vegetable oils, canola oil, all those really highly refined oils. You risk MSG, GMO products, all of those things that we know have very poor health outcomes that can lead to, you know, cholesterol buildup, poor cardiovascular health, and can predispose you for disease like COVID. And so it's really important that we get on the bandwagon of eating more clean, eating more whole foods, cooking more at home, and making a ritual out of it.
I can't echo your sentiments anymore. I believe that with 6 out of 10 Americans having the comorbidities, those comorbidities, there's an environmental component, yes, but it's all about eating. And I believe that somebody like you is at the precipice of the forefront of what we really need to do. Because with the conversation of drug and vaccine, which isn't here yet, we're not going down that rabbit hole, I promise you. Everybody would benefit from being healthier. So can you give me, if you don't mind, can you give me, I got a question. Oh, this is important because it's from the boss, if you understand who my boss is.
Okay.
Of course, she's asking you this and not me. That's great. What do we need to eat to regulate our blood sugar? Like, what would you recommend?
Okay. I thought there was more to it. Okay, boss, here's the answer. So it definitely starts with removing any processed grains, processed sugars. So that is gluten, that is wheat-based products. I'm okay with whole grains. I'm okay with quinoa. I'm okay with brown rice. Those are gluten-free grains that are high in nutrients, high in fiber. I like to cap it. So I like to cap it at 1 cup per day. I don't want people to be heavy on the carbs in that way. Other things that can help us regulate our blood sugar, protein and fats. So protein and fat don't get metabolized the same way that carbohydrates do. They're slow to metabolize. They're slow to bring our blood sugar up. And I have this rule, and the rule is to keep your blood sugar stable, you need to pair your carbohydrates with a fat or a protein, because then you're not going to get that spike in your blood sugar. And so, for example, brown rice cracker with half an avocado. That's an example of pairing a carb with a fat, or hummus and carrots, right? A little bit of fat and protein in the hummus with some carrots. A bonus if you make your own hummus at home. So the other thing is I really like to break down the carbohydrates. Sometimes I think it's obvious, but it's not obvious as it turns out. But carbohydrates, it's not just grains. People think of just carbs as bread or grains, but you've got vegetables and you've got fruits. And I want majority of people to get their carbohydrates from vegetables and limit fruit to 1 or 2 servings, right? And treat it like dessert, because sometimes people are like, well, I eat healthy, like 10 servings of fruit per day. I'm like, that's a lot of sugar that you're getting, right? And fructose can be really inflammatory and can do wonders to your liver. So let's not go down that route. But I really want people to optimize their nutrition and balance their blood sugar by having protein and fat with every meal. So if they're going to sit down and have a meal, whether they're doing time restricted eating or they're doing 3 meals per day or 4 meals per day, make sure that it has a healthy source of protein and a healthy source of fats, and never eat carbohydrates alone.
It sounds like you and I have spoken before, because my wife just said, we in our house, we eat to regulate our blood sugar. Being prepared to have food on hand is key. And great point. That's why she's my wife, because she's the brains behind the operation and the looks. But more so than that, we always make sure, just to piggyback, and we tell all our patients, just like you're saying, have something with you. Don't get caught. Like you said, don't get caught and have to go for the slice of pizza. Don't get caught and go for the Chinese takeout stuff.
Yeah.
Be prepared. It's kind of like in life, you want to be prepared. And it's right. Not all carbs are bad, but fructose is really overrated. It is a sneaky carb. I mean, it hits you twice. It's a great takeaway. It gets in there. It actually goes to your gut. And I know you know that. And then it goes to your liver. So it zaps you twice after raising your blood sugar. So as I tell everybody to kind of piggyback on what you said, there's essential fats, there's essential amino acids, there's no essential carbs. So if you're going to be prepared, now you know what to pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I was going to say, like, let's say you have a trigger during the day. And yesterday, for example, one of my patients, she's a manager at Amazon, and they've been under a lot of stress, right? Working overtime. And so she has a trigger that when she's approaching a deadline, she drives to the gas station, buys a box of Cheez-Its and a Diet Coke. And I said, in the time that you get up and go, you could walk around the block or run half a mile. You could prepare a healthy snack, like I said, like even just peanut butter and brown rice cracker. And you're going to be in such a better performance state, right? And she was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. That's okay. That's why we're talking, right? And so you got to, and when you're prepared, then you're also eating for performance, right? It's just, and those things, they build on each other. You're going to be that much more clear, that much more stronger, and you're going to get so much more out of your day and life.
Absolutely. So, in your office, in your naturopathic office, I'm going to come in and I've got a craving issue.
Okay.
Can you tell me what the patient can expect when they come in, what to go through? When I say the involved status in which you're going to try and get to the root cause resolution for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So when someone says that they have a craving, I first want to know, like I said, like with the audit, what are they eating? So what does their day-to-day look like? What are they eating during the day? The second thing is I want to know, are they exercising, right? Are they moving their body throughout the day? And I kind of have a rule that just doing your 1 hour workout during the day is not enough. I kind of want you to build in movement throughout the day. So are they living a stagnant lifestyle, or are they living I would say a healthy, moving a lot type of lifestyle? And so active lifestyle. Those are the first two things right off the gate, kind of the foundation. Then I dive into understand their physiology. How's the energy during the day? Are they sleeping enough? Because if you're not sleeping enough, then that's going to raise your cortisol initially until your cortisol then tanks, right? And they're going to be craving a lot of sugar. So how's the energy throughout the day? Where are they noticing the dips? Are they sleeping well? How's their weight? Do they put on weight, right? Due to possible cravings. And then we get into digestion, for example. So, and that is, are they having, how is their digestion? Are they constipated? Do they got diarrhea? Do they have loose bowels? Like, what is it? Are they having stomach pain? Do they feel bloated? So we're getting into kind of more in depth about what is the possible root of their cravings, right? And then we get into some hormonal questions, like, are they losing their hair? Do they feel cold? Are they irritable? Are there mood swings? How's their cycle? Do they get their cravings before the cycle, during, or after the cycle? So I'm trying to understand, is it more psychological? Is it more physiological? Or is it a combination of both?
That great answer. I am playing with my phone because I want to see the questions that everybody's
That's okay. Yeah.
So as opposed to getting notes, so those on the podcast can see me, I'm actually literally looking at my phone right now and seeing a couple of questions, and sometimes people DM me. So we'll go there.
Yeah.
So as opposed to, okay, no worries. So here's the question, and it's a pretty good one. I'm going to extrapolate what they're saying. I have a sugar problem, I have a gluten problem, and I like dairy. The trifecta, the sequela. Which one should I address first?
You know, I would address actually all three at once. And here's how I would do it. I would address those three by finding alternatives and substitutes for those three things. So gluten, get rid of the gluten and then include whole grains, right? Instead of having a whole wheat toast, have some maybe gluten-free oats for breakfast with some nut butter and some berries. That's one example. Instead of dairy, having a dairy-free yogurt like Forager cashew milk yogurt or Kite Hill almond milk yogurt or coconut milk yogurt. The key is not to have any additional sweeteners in there, right? So get the plain kind and then add maybe a little bit of maple syrup or just a little bit of honey to make it more taste bud friendly. So we've solved the gluten problem, we solved the dairy problem by simply adding in alternatives or substitutes. And now the sugar problem, the sugar issue is also, what are the alternatives? You know, having maybe some dates with almond butter, right? Just one or two. Making a delicious smoothie with like a pea protein, right? And maybe some berries and some spinach or kale. So adding a piece of fruit and then a piece of vegetable and adding some healthy protein into the mix. Maybe having a protein bar instead. I swear, one of my patients, I included, we used a non-heavily processed protein bar, and then she started making some of her own at home. And it fixed her sugar cravings just because we found something that was sweet, that was healthy, and that helped her balance her blood sugar. But I would say all of those three things are so inflammatory, the sugar, the dairy, the gluten, that you're going to do your body so much good. Within a week or two, you're going to feel amazing by giving up those three things and by going after the alternatives.
I love it. Again, we're speaking to that choir. I had somebody, this is more of a statement. They said, okay. I used to have a lot of cravings. Used to crave sugar. You're going to love this. And I used to take honey, agave honey.
Oh, no.
Yeah. High fructose corn syrup. Right.
Yeah.
Once I cut rid of the agave, my cravings went away. Speaking to what you said about sugar, how do I avoid making that mistake again with the hidden sugars in food labels?
Oh my gosh. So you got to read the labels. It is so crazy because I will literally pick up something that says paleo and I will turn it around to read the label, and it'll have like it'll have tapioca syrup, it'll have brown rice syrup, it'll have cane sugar, and it'll have something else like agave, right? And I'm like, why those so many sweeteners, right? In just one bar, for example, why can't we just add honey? Why can't we just add maple syrup or something in there, right? Mix it up with collagen, makes it really sticky and gooey, like perfect. And so you got to read the labels, right? So just because something says keto or paleo or whole foods or gluten-free and dairy-free doesn't mean that it's not packed with really poor ingredients. So I would say, dedicate some time. If there's an ingredient that you can't pronounce or you don't know much about, or if something says blah 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 syrup, chances are that it's pretty heavily processed, and I would avoid that.
Great choice. Great answer. Okay, I got a couple of quick questions before
Okay.
we
Okay.
bounce off. Do you have any upcoming educational programs that our listeners would benefit from hearing you from on the idea of cravings and health?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one that we're working on that will start in September, and I'm actually going to take people through the things that I cover in my book, Crave Reset. It's really going to help people understand why they're having cravings and then how to go about fixing them. And this is going to be mostly a group program. Again, it's going to start in September. We're working out the details, but people can visit our website for more information. But that's going to cover everything that we talked about, from hormones to gut health, and how do we go about kind of cleansing our palate and starting clean.
Well, you mentioned your website, but how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, they can go to www.proactivehealthnd.com.
Outstanding. And they can get in touch with you. They can get your book on Amazon.
Yep.
And you're available in clinic versus both telehealth and in person, I'm assuming.
So I'm moving away from in person. I want to keep people safe. And so I've been doing a lot more telemedicine and telehealth.
And we've got another question. Can you give me the question? I'm sorry, I can't find it.
So Barry says, what about saturated fats? I love a good steak.
What about saturated fats?
I love a good steak.
He loves a good steak, Barry. He's being honest. Of course, he meant grass-fed. We just didn't write that in. What about saturated fats?
You know, it's all about moderation. I don't like to put foods into bad or good, right? And so when it comes to grass-fed steak, and especially for, let's say, a male, right? I would say once or twice per week, that's fine. I think we get into the problem where, like, let's say with a carnivore diet where you're eating that steak 3 times per day and then you're having it for a snack. And then, you know, you just think that by eating that, you're really healthy, when in fact, like, you want to be able to understand how your liver is also processing all of that fat, because that could be a big fat bomb. But everything in moderation. So as long as you're not having that grass-fed steak every single night, you're okay.
I'm sure he's happy to hear that. We got another one. They're just rolling in now because they said we were going to leave. They're going to hold this up. I hope you're not in a rush.
That's okay.
Asher Allen says, thoughts on sourdough bread and kefir?
Okay. Thoughts on sourdough bread?
Less amounts, allergic components, good alternatives to plain bread and dairy.
Some alternatives to plain breads and dairy.
Got it. Okay. So sourdough bread, it's kind of a hot topic. So I've had some people ask, if I'm gluten intolerant, can I have sourdough bread? You have to go by how you feel. It depends on how big your sensitivity is. Some people cannot handle any sort of bread, right? Even if it's sourdough. And again, everything in moderation. If you have it once a week, that's okay. The tendency that people run into is they're having it every day. They're having it as a toast for breakfast. They're having it as a sandwich for lunch. My rule of thumb is also, if you're going to have bread, make it gluten-free. So I think, well, like, one of my favorite brand is Udi's. They make a great gluten-free alternative. The problem with gluten-free breads is that we start to run into a lot of like tapioca starch, potato starch. You're better off just eating real bread at that point, because it's just full of a lot of just starches and fillers. And so one of my favorite things is also, if you're looking for more like a gluten-free wrap alternative, is like almond flour or cassava flour. Those are great wraps that you can easily make, like an egg scramble and make a wrap out of it instead of using like a traditional toast, right? Or make a salad wrap out of it instead of using a traditional wrap. And then for dairy, I mentioned dairy-free yogurts like Forager or Kite Hill. They also make like a kefir-like blend as well. So those would be great alternatives for that. So coconut milk, oat milk, are great. Again, you just want to make sure that you're getting the unsweetened version of things.
I agree. You know, sometimes you read that label and they have like 18 different ingredients. You know, it's really funny. I've got my patient, my professor, and he says it 800 total SAT guy, and he goes, "Doc, just remember this. If there's too many ingredients, it ain't real food. I'm passing." Because there's no ingredient on broccoli. There's no ingredient on the wild salmon other than the wild salmon. It's very minimal. So I definitely like what you said. And the alternative flours are good, and the guar gum and the tapioca.
Yeah.
So gluten-free, if it's gluten, it doesn't have to say gluten-free. We should know that it's gluten-free. I agree. Do we have any others? Are we good? All right. They didn't keep you too long. It was great.
That's okay.
Listen, Dr. Elena, it was my pleasure. Thank you so very much for coming. We've got to do this again. Lots of luck with everything you're doing. And make sure you get that book into a lot of people's hands because they need what you have to share.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
It's my pleasure. See you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.